Nothing and nobody will ever hurt you again. Have you ever wondered why a single careless word, a cold glance, or even a forgotten text message is enough to ruin your entire day? You sit in the office, a colleague throws out a cruel joke, and your heart feels heavy until nightfall. When you return home, your loved ones hardly pay attention to you, and suddenly you feel invisible. Just one small act from someone else can suffocate the peace inside you. Why does that happen? Why do other people hold so much power enough to dictate your mood, your happiness, and sometimes even your sense of worth? This isn't just your story. In America, where life is busy, competition is fierce, and social relationships are heavy with pressure, many fall into the same trap as you, letting the outside world define their inner feelings. A boss's criticism makes you feel worthless. A lover's silence makes you doubt yourself. Being left out by a friend convinces you that you don't deserve love. But the truth spoken by Stoic philosophy more than 2,000 years ago is disarmingly simple. No one and nothing can hurt you unless you allow it. Epictetus once reminded us, men are disturbed not by things but by the views which they take of them. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. These men lived through wars, plagues, and betrayals, yet they stood firm because they understood where the key was within, not out there. It sounds simple, but applying it in real life is hard. I too once let someone's words haunt me for days, or a cold glance make me feel small. But when I began to see through the eyes of the Stoic, I realized that the real pain isn't in the event, but in my interpretation. And if I change the interpretation, no one can bring me down again. Are you ready to begin building an inner fortress where drama, criticism, betrayal, and life's unfairness cannot penetrate? This path does not promise you an easy life, but it does promise you one power nothing and no one can touch the peace within you anymore. If you want to find this freedom, stay with me until the end of the video. Before we continue, subscribe to Sovereign Stoic, because this will be where you discover the strength to live with autonomy, calm, and resilience through every storm. Understanding the root of pain. We often believe our pain comes from others, from how they treat us, the words they say, or the betrayals they commit. But if you look deeper, you will see another truth. Pain does not truly come from outside events, but from how you interpret them. Epictetus said, men are disturbed not by things, but by their opinion of things. That line reflects straight back into our minds today. When a colleague in an American office throws you a disdainful look, the event itself is only a look. But if you attach the meaning, he thinks I'm useless, immediately you feel wounded and your self-respect shakes. The meaning you attach is a knife in your heart, not the look itself. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself in Meditations, if any external thing pains you, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your judgment about it. He was an emperor facing betrayals and upheavals beyond measure. Yet he knew it wasn't the outside events that broke him, it was how he chose to see them. That is absolute freedom. Others can do anything, but cannot control your inner response. In modern life, many people are used to handing over the remote control of their emotions to others. When someone praises them, they are happy. When someone insults them, they are sad. When abandoned, they collapse. Even a single negative comment from an anonymous social media account is enough to ruin their morning. In America, many married people depend entirely on their spouse's mood. Just one day of silence or indifference, and their world collapses. In the workplace, employees torment themselves for a week because of a single piece of feedback, taking it as a verdict that defines their entire worth. In these cases, the event is only a spark, but the mind turns it into a wildfire. If a fall breaks your leg, that is physical pain, clear and undeniable. But most of the pain we carry daily does not come from wounds on the skin, but from mental pain created by interpretation, expectation, and memory. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." A cruel remark can rob you of sleep for nights. A rejection in love can haunt you for years. but the event itself is over. Only your mind keeps it alive, replaying it endlessly like a film on loop. Others may hurt you once, but you hurt yourself 1,000 more times by clinging to the memory and your interpretation of it. Let's look at a few real stories. John, a night worker in Colorado, used to feel humiliated whenever his boss criticized him publicly in meetings. He believed, "I truly am incompetent," and that belief rooted itself so deeply that every workday felt heavy. After learning about Stoicism, he realized that criticism only reflected another person's expectations, not his worth. By changing his interpretation, John began to see feedback as a chance to build patience and improve skill instead of as a sentence of his value. Sarah, a single mother in New Jersey, was shattered when her boyfriend left her. She thought it meant she was not good enough. But through Stoic teachings, Sarah learned to ask, is that truly the truth or just a story I am telling myself? And she realized he left because of his issues, not her value. From then on, she nurtured inner peace instead of chasing outside validation. The Stoic always draws a clear line between two layers: reality and interpretation. Reality is what happens outside what people say and do, the weather changing and markets shifting. Interpretation is what we attach to those events. They despise me. I've failed. The world is unfair. Epictetus emphasized that we cannot control reality, but can always control interpretation. This is the key to escaping pain. Change your perspective, change your feeling. If you see things as neutral, you are no longer a victim. An insult, instead of an attack on my worth, becomes a lesson in patience. Instead of a disaster, a financial setback becomes a chance to practice adaptability. I remember a time when the betrayal of a friend consumed me. I felt stabbed in the back as if the world had turned against me. But then I realized the pain did not come only from the act itself, but from my constant question, why did they do this to me? Then I read Marcus Aurelius, and one line woke me up. When someone does wrong, remember they act that way because they believe it is right. Suddenly my perspective shifted. That friend was no longer a cruel betrayer, but simply a limited human being acting from poor awareness and character. And my pain began to soften. By shifting perspective, I was no longer a victim. I became the one who learned the lesson: never let another's disappointment define my peace. Understanding the root of pain is the first step, but awareness alone is insufficient. In life, we are still pulled into sudden situations: an unpleasant coworker, a toxic relative, a harsh rejection. Reason knows pain comes from interpretation, yet emotions still flare up. So the next question is, how do we build an inner fortress that remains unshaken no matter how fierce the storm outside? That is what we will explore in the next part. Building the inner fortress. Once you understand that the root of pain lies in how you interpret events, the next step is learning how to build an inner fortress, a place no one can breach, where you control your emotions and your reactions. The Stoic does not try to change the world to avoid being hurt. Instead, they train themselves so that the inner life becomes firm enough, steady enough that the outside world cannot shake it. Marcus Aurelius called this the fortress within. In Meditations, he wrote, "Men seek retreat for themselves in the country, by the sea, or into the mountains. But you can at any moment find such a retreat in your own mind." That is not just philosophy, it is a way of living. Picture yourself living in a city. If its walls are weak, invaders can break through the gates, flood in, and take over. But if the walls are built of solid stone, the enemy may shout and fire arrows, but you still stand firm. Our inner life is the same. Any word, glance, or rejection can pierce through and knock you down if you leave it hollow. But if you patiently build a fortress within, you can stand in the storm of life without collapsing. The question is, how do you build such a fortress? First, you must clearly distinguish between what you control and what you do not. This is the strongest foundation. Epictetus said, "Within our power are opinion, aim, desire, aversion, And in a word, whatever affairs are our own, beyond our power or body property, reputation office, and in one word, whatever are not properly our own affairs. When you draw that line clearly, you stop wasting energy on what you cannot change. Remember the time you grew angry because your flight was delayed. That event was not within your control, but you could still control how you use the waiting time, read a book, reflect, or rest. The very first wall of the inner fortress is built from this distinction, refusing to sink into despair over what lies outside your power. Next, the Stoic lays brick upon brick through discipline. A fortress cannot be made strong if you only build for a few days and then abandon it. Every day you must train your mind how a warrior trains his body. Think of the gym. You cannot go once and expect lasting strength. You must persist, repeat lift weight after weight, and break through small limits repeatedly. The mind is the same. Each time you choose silence instead of an angry reaction, you add another brick to the wall. Each time you select a constructive thought, instead of sinking into victimhood, you place another layer of defense. This daily discipline transforms you from fragile to fortified. Another element of building the inner fortress is the ability to observe yourself. Seneca advised, each day ask yourself, what bad habit have you cured today? What fault have you resisted? In what respect are you better? When you practice this self-observation, you see clearly the mechanisms of your own emotions, what triggers your outbursts, what brings sadness, and you start to master them instead of being mastered by them. In modern American life, many turn to therapy for this reason, to learn to observe, name, and understand their emotions rather than be ruled by them. The Stoics practiced this thousands of years ago through journaling, self-examination, and inner dialogue. Another wall in the fortress is acceptance. We often confuse acceptance with surrender, but in Stoicism, acceptance is strength. Marcus Aurelius said, love whatever happens to you, for it has been spun for you, woven into your destiny. With acceptance, you stop fighting battles you cannot win against reality. You look at it directly, breathe deeply, and say, all right, this is what is happening. I did not choose it, but I choose how I respond. One person who loses a job may drown in despair, seeing only failure. But a Stoic sees it as a training ground to practice patience, find new paths, and recognize that true worth does not rest in a contract but in character. The inner fortress also needs to be nourished by stillness. In a society full of noise, people forget the value of silence. But the Stoic sees silence as food for the mind. Epictetus reminded us, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we may listen more and speak less. When you can be alone, needing no validation from others, unafraid of solitude, you add another solid wall. You become free from dependence on the eyes and the crowd's praise. And in that freedom, you are no longer wounded by rejection or judgment. The inner fortress is not a hiding place to escape life. It is not a wall to isolate you from the world. On the contrary, it is where you find the strength to step outward and face life without fear. When your inner world is secure, you can love without fear of betrayal, commit without fear of failure, and give without fear of loss. Because you know your worth is not in the hands of others. They may come and go, love and leave praise and condemn, but you remain standing like an unmoving fortress among storms. In American life, where pressure from work, finance, and relationships surrounds you constantly, the inner fortress is not a distant philosophy, but a practical necessity. An employee can be laid off at any moment when the economy shifts. A spouse can betray in the age of online dating. An entrepreneur can lose everything when the market turns overnight. No one escapes storms, but if they had built the fortress within, they would not have collapsed in the storm. They may grieve, they may feel pain, but they will not break. They keep walking, keep living, keep holding peace in their mind. When you step onto the Stoic path, you become the fortress's architect. It is not built in a day. There will be times when you see cracks in the wall, when emotions surge, when you still feel fragile. But that too is part of the journey. Each time you learn to rise again after being swept away, you learn to mend the wall, making it stronger. And through the years, the inner fortress becomes the legacy you leave to yourself, a sanctuary no enemy can enter. And when the fortress has begun to take shape, the next step is learning how to open and close its gates. Not everyone deserves to enter, and that is the art of setting boundaries, which will protect the peace you have worked so hard to build. Practicing detachment and boundaries. There is a truth most of us only learn after carrying many wounds. Not everyone deserves the right to enter your mind and your heart. Others may mock, betray, ignore, or deliberately try to pull you down. But what truly causes you pain is not the act itself, but the fact that you allowed it to sink too deeply inside. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are harmed, it is because you have allowed yourself to be harmed." This is not to place blame, but to point to a reality. The choice to hand over or to guard the key to your inner fortresses is always in your hands. In modern life, especially in America, setting boundaries has become difficult because of a culture of being always available and always pleasing others. You receive a message from a coworker at midnight and feel guilty if you don't reply. You say yes to gatherings, favors, and extra tasks because you fear being seen as selfish. You swing open the gates, letting others enter and disturb your rhythm of life, and you are the one who pays the price in fatigue and chaos. Epictetus warned thousands of years ago, "If you wish to be free, learn to say no to what does not belong to you." Practicing detachment does not mean becoming cold or indifferent. It is awareness, the clarity to see what lies within your control and beyond it. When a colleague complains or your boss yells, you still have the power to choose your reaction. You do not have to carry their anger on your shoulders. They may throw fire, but you are not obliged to hold it. Detachment here is a mental distance. You still hear, see, but you do not let it destroy your inner peace. Think of it like managing a house. If you are not careful who you allow to step in, your home will quickly become cluttered and unsafe. In the same way, if you let every opinion, every rumor, every expectation of others to enter your mind, your inner world will no longer be a place of rest, but will turn into a noisy marketplace. Setting boundaries is how you guard the gate, keeping what is unnecessary outside. There is a very real example in relationships. How many times have you clung to someone out of fear of losing them even when they repeatedly hurt you? You forgave repeatedly, but the price was your self-respect and peace. Seneca said, "He who submits himself to another's fate is no longer free." When you do not know how to say enough, you let others define your worth. On the other hand, when you learn to set a boundary, "This I will not accept, this no longer enters," you begin to reclaim your sovereignty. Practicing boundaries requires courage. You will be misunderstood. Others call you selfish, cold, or say you have changed. But remember, as Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "It is my duty to do what is right, not what is applauded." You do not live to please everyone. You live to stay straight with yourself. If someone leaves because you refuse to let them invade your peace, it is not a loss, but liberation. One Stoic method for maintaining detachment is the habit of observing emotions rather than dissolving into them. When someone insults you, instead of responding immediately, ask yourself, does this word actually diminish my true value? Or is it sound breath turned into words, and I alone decide what impact it has? The moment you create that distance, you raise a wall of protection, and over time that wall becomes a fortress. Practicing boundaries also means learning the art of silence. Not the silence of resignation, but the silence of strength. When you no longer feel compelled to react to every provocation, you prove that you control yourself. Epictetus taught his students, "No man can make you angry without your consent." Think about it. If you flare up every time someone mocks you, you've handed them the controls of your life. But if you choose silence, calmness, you take that power back. In American society, where life moves fast, social media is loud, and comparison is everywhere, protecting mental boundaries is even more critical. Not everyone online deserves the right to influence your mood. A negative comment, a disdainful look, and dismissiveness are tests for you to practice detachment. If you learn to filter, you will see that most of what bothers you is not genuinely connected to you at all. Remember, boundaries are not walls to imprison yourself. They are fences to protect your inner garden. You plant seeds of peace, gratitude, and discipline in that garden. You water that garden when you say no to outside chaos. Over time, it becomes a flourishing place of order, strength, and freedom. Detachment and boundaries are also a test of self-respect. You cannot demand that others respect you if you do not defend your limits. When you set a boundary, you tell the world, "I know my worth and I will not let anyone break it." This is the silent yet most powerful message you can send, and often it needs no explanation, only action. And eventually you will see that practicing detachment does not make you lonely, it makes you free. You no longer strain to hold relationships that only survive on endurance. You no longer waste time explaining yourself to those who refuse to understand. You no longer writhe under the unfairness of others. You learn to filter. You learn to stay silent. You learn to keep a distance. And within that distance, you rediscover the peace you once lost. When you have walked this path far enough, you will ask yourself, what comes after I have raised walls, held distance, and kept out the chaos? And the answer, according to the Stoics, is inner transformation. Boundaries are not only to block the negative, but also to open space for the positive to grow. And this is the moment to move into a deeper level, how to cultivate emotional resilience, so that even when the world around you shakes, you still stand firm like a stone pillar in the storm. Training emotional resilience. There is a question anyone on the path of self-mastery must face. How do you remain steady when the world constantly changes, when others continually test your limits? This is the essence of emotional resilience, the ability to stand firm in the storm and keep peace even when everything around seems to collapse. The ancient Romans faced upheavals more brutal than almost anything we endure: wars, plagues, betrayal, loss. From that chaos, Stoic philosophy emerged as a compass for the mind. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." He did not write that as a detached philosopher, but as an emperor under crushing pressure, surrounded by schemes and rebellions. And if he could keep calm on the battlefield, can we not keep our steadiness in the face of criticism or a contemptuous glance? In modern American life, the greatest battle is not war, it is the chaos of daily rhythm. You walk into the office and face pressure from your boss and coworkers. You step outside and traffic and blaring horns stir up your mind. You open your phone and hundreds of opinions, comments, and negative headlines pour in. These are like waves, and if you do not master your emotions, you will be swept away, drifting without direction. Emotional resilience does not mean feeling nothing. The Stoic is not a lifeless stone. They still know pain, sadness, and anger, but the difference is they do not let those feelings steer the ship of their life. Reason holds the wheel, emotions pass like the wind. Seneca wrote, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." An insult may haunt you for days, but truthfully, it existed only for seconds when spoken. The rest is your mind replaying it. And here begins resilience training. You learn to observe instead of nurture. Imagine you are driving on the highway. Someone cuts you off and nearly causing a collision. Your first instinct is to explode, curse, lean on the horn, and teach them a lesson. But if you pause for a few seconds and ask, is this worth losing my peace for the whole day? Could they be rushing their child to the hospital? Is my story about this more important than the truth? You realize you always have the power to choose your reaction. Emotional resilience is precisely this, the ability to choose your response instead of reacting by impulse. A powerful Stoic practice is premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. They imagine difficulties, losses, and worst-case scenarios, not to spread pessimism, but to prepare the mind. They were not shocked or broken when hardship came, for their mind had already gone ahead. You too can apply this. Before a critical meeting, imagine being criticized or opposed. When it happens, you do not collapse. You calmly accept, I foresaw this. Now is the moment to prove my composure. Well, emotional resilience is also forged in daily routines. The Stoics advise beginning each morning with reflection. Today I shall meet the irritable, the ungrateful, the greedy, but they cannot rob me of my virtue. Preparing your spirit in advance turns the day into training, not a surprise battle. And at night they reviewed, what emotions led me today? Where did I hold steady? Where did I falter? This was not mere philosophy, it was discipline. In practice, emotional resilience shows in small acts. You refuse to dive into pointless online arguments. You choose silence when provoked. You smile lightly at an insult, not because you are weak, but because you know no one deserves the fire of your peace. Each time you do this, you forge another layer of armor. And over time, that armor becomes impenetrable. Yet resilience cannot exist if you neglect body and mind. A weary mind collapses under the smallest blow. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, the body must be cared for, the mind kept pure, the soul nourished with reason. You cannot expect to stay calm if you are sleep-deprived, gluttonous, or drowning in toxic news. Resilience begins with disciplined living, proper rest exercise, meditation, journaling, and surrounding your mind with healthy environments. And finally, emotional resilience is the gift you give yourself. When you stop letting the outside world control you, you free yourself from suffering and become an anchor for others. A calm father teaches his children how to face failure. A composed partner keeps the flame of harmony alive in the home. A resilient leader helps a team stand firm in crisis. Your strength radiates outward like a lighthouse at night, guiding ships adrift. When you have trained emotional resilience, you realize nothing can easily reach the core of your peace anymore. Others may rage, you remain unmoved. Life may take away, you stay balanced. What once shook you now passes like a fleeting breeze. And this is the moment you know no one and nothing can ever hurt you again unless you allow it. And once you can stand firm in storms, you begin to see that emotional resilience is not only a defense. It clears the way for another power, the ability to transform pain into strength, to turn adversity into a stepping stone. This is the next step in the journey. Turning pain into strength. Each of us has experienced pain. It could be the betrayal of a close friend, the sudden end of a relationship, a bitter failure at work, or the unexpected passing of a loved one. Pain is something no human being can avoid. But the difference between those who collapse and those who rise again lies in how they face it. The Stoic does not try to deny pain, nor do they let it bury them. Instead, they transform it into a tool, a source of energy that regenerates inner strength. Epictetus once said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." When an event occurs, it is just an event. We are the ones who cover it with layers of meaning. A breakup can be seen as a disaster, but it can also be viewed as an opportunity for freedom, a fresh start and growth. A failure at work can crush you, but it can also become the lesson that makes you wiser and more resilient. When transformed, pain, loss, and breaking are the birthplace of strength. In modern life, many people in America remain trapped in the cycle of suffering because they were never taught how to transform it. Consumer culture urges us to escape sad go shopping, stress drink, lonely rush into short-lived relationships. Instead of facing pain, we try to cover it with distraction. But as Seneca warned, the man who runs away from pain is still its slave. Pain does not vanish, it only waits ready to return with greater force. The Stoic chooses another path. They confront it directly, sit with it, dissect it, and draw lessons from it. Imagine losing your job after years of dedication. At first, the pain tears your inner life apart. You feel betrayed, worthless, and useless. But if you apply the Stoic view, you ask, what can I learn from this? Who can I become because of this? In that very question, you open the door to transformation. Instead of sinking into despair, you realize this is an opportunity to start anew and find work that matches your skills and aspiration. The pain of losing a job becomes the motivation to recreate yourself. Marcus Aurelius in Meditations wrote, "Love your fate." He called it Amor Fati, the love of destiny. This does not mean rejoicing in loss, but accepting that every event, no matter how painful, carries within it a necessary piece for shaping the person you are meant to become. A tree must endure storms if it is to grow tall. Steel must pass through fire if it is to be strong. And a soul must learn to turn pain into lessons if it is to find peace instead of becoming a victim. Pain is like fire. Left uncontrolled, it burns everything. But if you know how to harness it, it becomes energy, light, and strength to move forward. The Stoic trains the ability to turn pain into fuel. They understand that life is fair. In one sense, it gives each person challenges sufficient to test their strength. If you accept them, each sorrow becomes another layer of armor. In reality, many Americans have found strength in pain. A veteran returns from war carrying wounds of body and soul, but instead of living in bitterness, he inspires other soldiers. A mother who lost her child in tragedy instead of collapsing creates a foundation to support families in the same grief. These people prove Seneca's words, "The greater the difficulty, the more glory in surmounting it." Pain did not erase them, it rebirthed them. What matters is learning to observe pain as an outsider. Try writing down your emotions when hardship strikes. Pain on paper no longer sits silently in your chest when you see it. It becomes an object in which you can analyze and seek meaning. Writing, meditating, and sharing with trusted people are ways to turn pain from a tyrant into a teacher gradually. Do not forget that emotional resilience, the practice from the previous step, is the foundation that allows you to transform pain into strength. Without calmness, you will be swallowed by waves of feeling. But once the mind is steady, you see pain as a heavy rain. It may drench you, but it can also cleanse and renew you. Each time you walk through pain without breaking, you rise taller, stronger, steadier. There is a paradox. Those who have endured the most significant pain often inspire most deeply. Because they have known what it means to shatter and learn to rise from the ashes, they understand the fragility of life, and from that they cherish each peaceful moment. When you know pain, love life more, value small things more, and your strength becomes unshakable. Turning pain into strength does not mean seeking out suffering. It means that when it comes, and it will come, you choose to make it serve you rather than destroy you. You decide to learn, to grow, to rise. And from that choice, you become someone new. Not because you never felt pain, but because you survived it and learned to use it to shine. And when you have learned to turn pain into strength, you realize this is only the beginning. After pain is transformed, there remains a higher task to turn that self-mastery into action, live a life of purpose, and inspire others. That is the next stage of the journey, living with purpose and right action. Once you have learned to stay resilient and turn pain into strength, a new door opens the door of right action. Stoic philosophy is not about sitting still and merely enduring. It points toward an active life with purpose where every action reflects your highest values. The Stoic believes that inner strength only truly matters when it guides us toward wise and just actions. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "A man should be upright, not kept upright." And elsewhere, a man needs only two things to act purposefully and to keep his mind still. His words sketch a clear compass. We cannot live a life of value if we are swept into meaningless deeds, shallow habits, or fleeting impulses. Purpose is the lighthouse. It tells you where to go, what to do, and why. Think of a typical day in America. Many wake up, gulp down coffee rush into the machinery of work meetings, emails, and end the night staring at a television screen. They are busy, yet feel empty. For busyness is not the same as living with purpose. The difference lies in whether you know what truly guides you. The Stoic will ask, is what I am doing truly important? Does it align with my values and my nature? Epictetus reminded us, do not waste your energy on what does not belong to you. These are simple words, but your life changes if you live by them. Instead of striving to please everyone, you focus on what you can control, your own right action. You cannot control coworkers' thoughts, but can work with integrity. You cannot force someone to love you, but you can act with kindness and respect. You cannot control politics or the economy, but you can manage your discipline and finances. Living with purpose means setting non-negotiable principles. Seneca wrote, "No wind is favorable to the sailor who does not know where he is going." Any storm will throw you off course without a clear compass of values. But a person with purpose knows their direction even in chaos. That is why so many, after experiencing significant loss, find the strength to embark on more meaningful paths. They stop living to survive. They live to serve something greater than themselves. For example, a doctor in New York, after losing a loved one to illness, dedicates their life to research for a cure. A teacher who once knew poverty commits to giving children in poor communities the chance to rise. These actions spring from pain, yet are transformed into purpose. And when purpose appears, actions become right, steady, robust. The Stoic never separates action from philosophy. Marcus Aurelius, though emperor of a vast empire, reminded himself each morning, "Today I will meet the selfish, the arrogant, the ungrateful. But I will not be angry, for they act according to their nature, and I must act according to mine with justice." Right action is not reacting by emotion, but choosing to act by reason and values. In modern American society, countless distractions pull you away from purpose. Social media pushes comparison. Work forces endless performance. Consumer culture tempts you to seek happiness in possessions. Without a solid foundation, you drift along, never truly living. The Stoic reminder is simple: act only for what truly matters: integrity, courage, justice, wisdom. These are the purposes of a worthy life. One way to practice is to begin each morning with 3 questions. How will I live today so that I will not regret? What action today reflects my highest values? How will I respond if challenges come? These questions are like a furnace that forges your mind each day. And at night before sleep, reflect: did I act rightly? Did I miss the chance to live with purpose? This was Marcus Aurelius's exercise. His Meditations was a journal of self-examination and correction. When you live with purpose and act rightly, pain, failure, and criticism no longer weigh on you as before. Because you know precisely what you are doing and why you no longer need the world's approval, for the approval lies in your honesty. This is the freedom Stoicism points to. Not freedom from responsibility, but freedom to act with the highest responsibility toward yourself and your life. Living with purpose does not mean you must perform incredible feats, save the world, or change history. Sometimes, right action is simply caring for your family, treating coworkers kindly, working with honesty, or keeping your promises. The Stoic does not chase greatness outside, but seeks greatness in each ordinary moment. As Epictetus said, no one can stop you from acting rightly, not even if the whole world opposes you. Living with purpose and proper action is like building a tower from within. Each day you lay one brick with a right deed, and over time you construct a stronghold that no misfortune can tear down. In this way, you not only transform yourself, but you also become an example to others. Like a lamp, you do not need to persuade anyone. You shine and others will see. When you walk this path, you discover a truth of right action not only gives you peace, it contributes to the peace of the whole. You are no longer hurt by trivial things, for your mind is anchored to a higher aim. And in that anchoring, you move closer to the steadiness that nothing and no one can shake. And once you have laid this foundation and learned right action, the next step in the Stoic journey is to live with gratitude and presence. For action is only complete when it is nourished by appreciation for the present moment and what you already have. Gratitude and presence. Of all the inner strengths a person can train, Gratitude and presence are two pillars that free you from the chains of the past and the weight of the future. The Stoics believe that you can truly be free only when you learn to value what you have in the present moment. Freedom does not come from controlling everything beyond your reach, but from the ability to look directly at this moment and say, this is enough. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Do not let yourself be pulled away by dreams of what has not happened, nor dragged back by the past. For the present is all you truly possess." These words, though simple, are medicine for countless modern illnesses. Anxiety, depression, dissatisfaction, most of them are born from living in places where reality does not exist either in memory or in speculation. Look at life in America today. An office worker fears he may be laid off in the next round of cuts, even though he still has his job, salary, and opportunities right now. A busy mother worries endlessly about what school her children will get into instead of cherishing every dinner they still sit together at the table. A young person lies awake at night thinking about student debt, missing the simple joys right before them. We are so haunted by tomorrow and yesterday that we lose today. The Stoics did not deny the past nor ignore the future. They reminded us the past is closed and the future has not yet come. The only thing in our control is the present, and how we live in the present shapes the future. Seneca said, "The greatest misery is never to be present, but to live only in the past or the future." This is why presence becomes one of the most essential skills. Gratitude is the road back to presence. When you sit down and count what you already have, you are pulled out of comparison and dissatisfaction. A quiet morning, a deep breath, a hot cup of coffee, a trusted friend. These may seem small, but they are proof that you are alive and given more than you realize. Gratitude is the recognition that you are not lacking. You are already enough. Americans have Thanksgiving, but gratitude should not be confined to a single holiday. It must become a way of life. A Stoic might begin each morning by writing down 3 things they are grateful for and end the day reflecting on what was given to them. This is not just a psychological exercise, but a return to the truth that happiness lies not in what you desire, but in how you cherish what you already have. One of the hardest things for humans is to pause and savor the moment. We live as if always in a race chasing work achievements and social milestones. But when you stop and are truly present, you realize everything you were searching for, peace, joy, a sense of fullness, was here all along. What was missing was only recognition. Epictetus taught, when you kiss your child, remind yourself he may not be here tomorrow. It sounds harsh, but it is a reminder of impermanence. Instead of taking things for granted, you become grateful for the chance right now to love, enjoy, and be present. Awareness of fragility deepens gratitude. Practicing presence does not mean abandoning plans or ceasing to dream. It only means you are not swallowed by what has not yet arrived. You can still seek goals for the year ahead, but you also savor the journey day by day. When you eat, eat. When you converse, truly listen. When you work, focus entirely. Presence is giving your mind wholly to one thing at a time instead of letting it scatter in 1,000 noises. Consider this simple example. You are driving on the California freeway. Instead of worrying about tomorrow's meeting or replaying yesterday's argument, you focus on the moment, the wind through the window, the soft music on the radio, the sunset stretching across the sky. That is presence, simple yet powerful. And when you are present, you are no longer wounded by what has not yet come or has already passed. You live in reality, and reality does not hurt you. Living with gratitude and presence does not make you passive. On the contrary, it helps you act more wisely. When you stop worrying about tomorrow, you have more energy to deal with today. When you stop tormenting yourself about the past, you have the clarity not to repeat old mistakes. Presence sharpens judgment and strengthens decision-making because assumptions or illusions no longer blind you. And finally, when you live with gratitude and presence, you discover a liberating truth: no one and nothing can harm you, if your mind rests entirely in the present. Insults belong to the past, worries belong to the future. But here now you are safe, you are free, you are complete. And when you enter this state, you prepare for the final step of the journey, true liberation, where you are not only present for yourself, but where your calm spreads to others so that no one and nothing can shake you again. Liberation and the power of being untouchable. Liberation is not the moment you wake up and find all your problems gone. It does not come from the world suddenly becoming fairer, nor from the people around you ceasing to be selfish or careless. Liberation is when you realize that no one holds the key to your inner life except you. No word, action, or look can break you from that moment anymore. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If someone does you harm, remember that they are acting according to their own view of what is good, but you are under no obligation to let yourself be harmed." This is the spirit of liberation, to understand that others may carry ignorance, error, or unhealed pain within them, but you need not turn those things into chains upon yourself. In America today, we can see vivid examples of this strength. Someone is suddenly laid off after years of service, yet instead of collapsing, they see it as a chance to start their own venture. Friends betray each other, yet instead of drowning in bitterness, they use it as an opportunity to refine their circle and build deeper trust. This is liberation. Instead of letting circumstances defeat you, you use them as a springboard to stand stronger. The Stoics never promised a life without suffering. They only showed that suffering need not become shackles. You may experience loss, but you need not lose yourself. You may face betrayal, but need not turn it into lifelong bitterness. You may endure physical pain, but your mind can still stand tall. This is the crucial separation. The world may shake, but your inner fortress does not. Epictetus, an enslaved person who became a philosopher, is the most evident proof of this. His master once broke his leg, but it did not break his spirit. He taught, "They may chain your body, but not your mind." True freedom begins there. This strength is not just philosophy to reflect on, it is a tool for daily living. Imagine walking into an argument at work. Instead of being swept up in your colleague's anger, you take a deep breath and remind yourself, their emotions belong to them, not to me. You choose to respond calmly, and in that moment you win. Not victory over the other person, but victory over yourself, victory over blind reaction. This is the power of being untouchable, when you are no longer pulled by circumstance, but free to choose your own response. Seneca reminded us, "The strongest man is he who masters himself, not subdues others." The modern world glorifies outer victories, titles, wealth, power. But the power of being untouchable lies not in those things. It lies in your composure amidst upheaval, in your ability to keep your values and character even while everything shakes around you. Consider a soldier returning from war, carrying wounds in both body and soul. He could let trauma consume the rest of his life. But if he faces it, accepts it, and chooses gratitude for still having the chance to live, then not even war can defeat him. Liberation is not forgetting the wound, it is turning the wound into proof of inner strength. In daily life, liberation shows when you no longer depend on others for validation. When you genuinely know who you are, you need no praise to feel worthy, nor do you collapse under criticism. The Stoics called this living according to nature, living aligned with reason, rather than chasing society's illusions. No silence, rejection, or disdain can shake you when you are content with yourself. Another key lies in distinguishing between what you are responsible for and not. Epictetus was clear, some things are in our control and some are not. To try to change what lies outside is to give yourself to frustration. But focusing only on what lies within your thoughts, actions, and attitude frees you from countless worries. When you do this, no circumstance has the power to break you, because your strength no longer depends on the outside. The power of being untouchable does not mean being defensive against everything. You do not need walls of anger, suspicion, or coldness. You live with clarity for those who respect you. You open For those who harm you, you set boundaries. No malice, no hatred, only wisdom protecting your peace. This is gentle, unshakable strength. Quiet power, yet commanding respect. Picture a great oak tree standing in a storm. Winds howl, rain pounds, yet it remains rooted trunk upright. It resists not with stiffness alone, but with a balance of strength and flexibility. This is the image of a mind that has reached liberation, rooted like the trunk, adaptable like the branches. Storms may come and go, but their essence remains untouched. When you reach this state, life is no longer a series of threats, but a journey of trials proving your strength. Each hardship is no longer a crack, but an opening through which your inner light shines. You no longer ask, why is this happening to me? But instead, how can I grow through this? The final liberation is realizing you are not a victim of life, you are its creator. And when you live in this awareness, nothing can harm you anymore. Not because life is lighter, but because you have grown stronger. And when you stand in this place, a human being free, steady, no longer bound by fear or hurt, you inspire others, your calm spreads. Your steadiness gives others hope. And in that moment, you see the journey was never only about saving yourself, but about planting seeds of peace into the world. Nothing and nobody will ever hurt you again. If you have come this far, it means one thing: you are not here for empty words, but for true transformation. Together we have faced the raw truths of life, that people will hurt you, that the world will never be fair, that circumstances will never bend to your will. However, we have also seen the Stoic path. You cannot control what others say or do, but hold complete authority over how you respond. You hold the key to your peace in the story you write for your life. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning, "Today I will meet the ungrateful, the arrogant, the deceitful, the envious, but none of them can harm me, for their nature is theirs, not mine." That is the core. Pain may knock at your door, but only stays if you let it in. Insults may be thrown, but they only cut if you allow yourself to bleed. Life may test you with betrayal or loss, but nothing can touch the core within you, the choice, the fortress, the power to say, "I am not defeated." Think about it: every time you let a careless remark ruin your day, or let someone else's chaos drag you into the storm, you are handing them the controls of your peace. And most of the time, they are not even aware of it. They too are struggling with their own chaos. So why let others hold what belongs to you? It is time to take it back. This lesson seems simple, but it is the hardest of all. Your value is not decided by another's glance. Your peace is not dependent on another's behavior. And freedom is not something the world gives you, you dare to claim for yourself. Epictetus said, "If someone tells you that another speaks ill of you, do not defend yourself. Reply only, 'He does not know all my other faults, otherwise he would have mentioned them too.'" That is not coldness, it is wisdom. It is the calm of one who knows that peace cannot be stolen. It can only be surrendered. So what is your task for today? When someone provokes you, pause before reacting. When life throws disappointment at you, remind yourself, this too is part of the human experience. When chaos surrounds you, choose to be the still center rather than another fragment spinning in the storm. Each pause, each moment you choose, composure over explosion, is another brick placed in your inner fortress. Over time, you will not only survive the storms, you will walk through them with a calmness that makes others wonder what secret you have found. And you will know that the secret was always within you. Remember, healing does not mean you will never feel pain again. It means pain no longer controls your decisions. It means you carry scars, but they do not bleed every time someone touches them. It means you can look betrayal in the eye and say, "This did not end me. It forged me." That is true strength, the strength of becoming untouchable. And if there is only one sentence to carry with you after this video, let it be this: nothing and nobody can hurt you again unless you hand them the knife. From today, you keep it firmly in your own hands. If this message touched you, do not keep it to yourself. Please share it with someone who needs to be reminded that they are stronger than their wounds. And if you are ready to continue this journey with us, building discipline, Reclaiming Peace, Training a Stoic Mind. Subscribe to Sovereign Stoic so you do not miss the next steps. You do not need the world's approval. You do not need permission from anyone. You only need the courage to protect your peace and to live true to yourself. That is the path we are walking here together. And remember, true freedom begins when you stop giving away your power. Walk steadily, walk calmly, walk sovereign. The world may test you, but it will never break you again.